China's international airports resemble ghost towns as foreign visitors disappear. Netizens mock, decoupling complete, entertaining ourselves behind closed doors. China turns desolate as foreign investors flee. Only African communities remain, making Beijing's 5% GDP target for 2025 look unattainable. Littering, stealing, and shameless conduct. Chinese tourists spark global backlash. Why are they becoming increasingly uncivilized? 5 major shifts in Chinese lifestyles to cope with economic pressure. September 3rd, Parade of the CCP costs. Over 5 billion showcases new weapons, experts expose most are imitations. Welcome to Secret in China, where facts matter, and every story is told with integrity. China's international airports resemble ghost towns as foreign visitors disappear. Netizens mock, decoupling complete, entertaining ourselves behind closed doors. China's once bustling international airports, long symbols of its global connectivity, now stand eerily deserted. In the context of China's deepening economic challenges and declining consumer spending, scenes emerging from Beijing and Shanghai airports resemble ghost towns, sparking ridicule online that the country has successfully closed the door and is entertaining itself. In Shanghai, travelers have posted footage of the international satellite terminal at Pudong Airport, showing shuttered shops, empty VIP lounges, and sparse crowds. "Where have all the people gone?" one traveler asked. "I got up early this morning, took the metro to Pudong, checked my luggage, and walked into a departure lounge that was completely empty. I always arrive hours early because security can take forever. Today, it took 3 minutes. Last year, even the year before, I came here a few times and the crowds were still thick. Now it feels like only a fraction remain. What happened?" The emptiness is not confined to Shanghai. Bloggers shared similar footage from Beijing Daxing International Airport. "I'm waiting for a connecting flight here. Completely empty, not a soul in sight. The duty-free shops are closed. I've been here over an hour and have seen just a handful of people. 2 white, 3 black, the rest Asian. On the other side, 1 duty-free shop is open, but it's basically empty." Another traveler added, "At Beijing Capital International's Terminal 2, there are hardly any departures. Terminal 3's international area is just as bad. Last week, I flew from Osaka into Beijing Daxing. Comparing the traffic at Osaka's duty-free shops, crowded, lively, with Beijing's deserted scene is heartbreaking. If we can't admit there's a gap, how can we correct our mistakes and catch up?" Official data underscores the concern. In 2024, foreign entries and exits in China totaled 64.82 million, far below the 97.675 million recorded in 2019. Commentators note that while foreigners avoid China, neighboring countries are surging. Japan, Vietnam, Thailand, India, they're drawing more and more foreign visitors, one observer wrote. Openness is not just about visa-free policies. It includes culture, media, the internet, finance, education. If China can't open in those areas, foreigners and capital will go elsewhere. India and Vietnam will take them. Our current economic difficulties will only deepen. The decline in foreign visitors is just one symptom. The desolate airports mirror a broader downturn in aviation and travel. China's 3 state-owned airlines have reported losses for 5 consecutive years. In May, regional carrier Joy Air announced a complete shutdown, crushed by years of debt. Pilots disclosed that salaries began to be delayed 4 years ago, forcing many to moonlight as food delivery workers, DiDi drivers, or street vendors. For many Chinese citizens, the decline feels surreal. Right now in 2025, so many businesses, private, state-owned, commercial, are collapsing faster and faster, one blogger lamented. Take aviation, transportation, passenger services, all rely on people moving. But demand for travel is shrinking. The environment is terrifying. Everything is stagnant. High-speed trains are empty. Buses have stopped running. Flights are being canceled. This stagnation is just the beginning. Other sectors will collapse even faster. It's irreversible, absolutely irreversible. The reasons foreigners are avoiding China have sparked discussions in recent years. These include China's internet firewall, which renders many foreign apps unusable, the disappearance of convenient, affordable accommodation platforms like Airbnb, and requirements for foreigners to stay in hotels licensed to accept foreign guests, coupled with police registration mandates. Additionally, China's security environment has raised concerns among foreigners, with multiple violent attacks on foreigners reported last year. China turns desolate as foreign investors flee. Only African communities remain, making Beijing's 5% GDP target for 2025 look unattainable. Guangzhou, once known as China's southern gateway and a magnet for global trade, has now fallen into decline, overtaken not by foreign investment, but by the growth of its African immigrant community. A blogger visiting Sanyuanli, the largest African enclave in the city, noted that 90% of the guides are African. The population in this community is primarily composed of North Africans, Arabs, and Sub-Saharan Africans, largely from Nigeria, Mali, Guinea, Cameroon, Liberia, and Congo. The first wave arrived in the 1990s to engage in trade, carrying Chinese clothing and raw materials back to Africa. But over time, their roles shifted. Many have taken up odd jobs or married locals. Yet observers emphasize that their presence, while visible, contributes little to China's economic development. This isn't about racial prejudice, one commentator noted. If you want growth, you need Japanese, Korean, and Western companies. If you drive them away and are left with only people buying slippers and t-shirts, how much does that add to the economy? Negligible. Today, Guangzhou faces a commercial slump. With foreign capital pulling out, even African-run shops are closing in large numbers. Bankruptcies, unpaid wages, and rising unemployment are casting a long shadow over the city. Bloggers across Guangzhou describe the same bleak reality. You might not believe it, but many big companies haven't paid salaries for months, one said. Layoffs are chaotic. People want to quit but don't dare, because there are no new jobs. If they stay, they don't get paid. Shiny office towers look impressive from the outside, but many are empty inside or functioning as shared workspaces. In Starbucks and McDonald's outlets, middle-aged men sit with laptops all morning, pretending to work, simply letting time slip by. And these empty scenes aren't confined to late nights. This isn't Guangzhou at midnight, it's 10 a.m. in Fanyu, another blogger wrote. The streets are deserted. There are no workers, no crowds. Guangdong feels hollowed out. The era of massive crowds is gone forever. Factories stand unrented, with larger firms relocating to Southeast Asia or back to their provincial capitals. The pressure here is immense, one post said. Running physical stores is becoming impossible. Over the past year, the downward spiral has only accelerated. The Chinese Communist Party's stimulus policies have failed, unemployment is surging, consumption is downgrading, and public confidence is eroding. Netizens flood social media with videos of shuttered markets and everyday hardship. Yet on January 17th, the National Bureau of Statistics reported GDP growth of 5% for 2024, meeting official targets. In March, Premier Li Qiang once again set the 2025 growth target at 5%, boasting that China remained the world's strongest growth engine. Netizens reacted with scorn. A Beijing advertising company owner quipped, "I don't know where this growth comes from. They just say whatever they want." He admitted that 2024 had been his worst business year in 2 decades. Skepticism extends beyond China. George Magnus, an associate at Oxford University's China Center and former UBS chief economist, told Radio Free Asia that Beijing's economic data is fabricated. He argued that if GDP were really expanding at 5%, massive monetary, housing, and fiscal stimulus would not be necessary. Yet these have been rolled out every year since the pandemic. The US-China tariff war only deepens the pain. President Trump has imposed 2 rounds of tariffs totaling 20%, with more increases expected, driving foreign companies to move production out of China. Official figures reveal the exodus of foreign capital. From January to December 2024, actual foreign investment in RMB terms fell 27.1% year-on-year. With the yuan's depreciation, the real decline in dollar terms is even worse. Netizens interpret this as a clear sign of capital flight, possibly worsened by Russia's own economic turmoil spilling over. Takayoshi Sekishita, chief researcher at Nomura Capital Markets Research Institute, outlined the forces driving capital out. Intensifying U.S.-China tensions, slowing growth, a shrinking labor force, higher wages, tighter security laws, fiercer local competition, post-COVID supply chain restructuring, and rising xenophobia. He pointed to the September 2024 killing of a Japanese schoolboy in Shenzhen and subsequent attacks on foreigners as examples of risks making China less attractive. China analyst Wang Hu echoed the warning, saying that in 2025, economic uncertainty is only increasing. Foreign direct investment will be more cautious, he noted, while outbound Chinese investment may actually accelerate. For foreign firms inside China, the situation will worsen further. Finding employment will become even more difficult. What was once China's showcase of global engagement, cities like Guangzhou, is now a case study in retreat. Foreign investors are leaving, industries are collapsing, and only a diminished presence of African communities remains in once thriving trade hubs. Against this backdrop, Beijing's 5% GDP growth target looks less like a goal and more like a mirage. Littering, stealing, and shameless conduct. Chinese tourists spark global backlash. Why are they becoming increasingly uncivilized? Across the world, a troubling pattern has emerged. Chinese tourists are increasingly being viewed not as welcome guests but as sources of chaos and disruption. From Japan to Europe, reports of uncivil behavior are eroding China's reputation abroad and raising difficult questions about how a nation once known as the land of etiquette became synonymous with disorderly conduct. In Japan, the issue has become particularly visible. At one hotel, an older Chinese woman cut in line and struck a young man who dared to object. Witnesses say she continued shouting insults even as she lashed out, while the young man stood frozen in shock, unwilling or unable to fight back. Such brazenness has become emblematic of what locals now describe as the scourge of Chinese aunties, older women notorious for aggressive behavior on group tours. The same attitude was on display in Osaka, where 5 Chinese tourists turned a short Airbnb stay into a disaster. The host, operating a rental called The Birch Tree, found his property trashed within just 3 days. A Japanese blogger, Rocket Dan 2, posted video evidence. Food containers and drink cartons abandoned on tables, towels scattered across bathroom floors, tissues piled on sofas and chairs. Japan's Airbnb culture relies on guests cleaning up and properly sorting garbage before leaving. Cleaning fees normally run between 5,000 and 15,000 yen. But in this case, the damage was so extensive that the property was forced offline, costing the host both money and credibility. The fallout has been severe. Some hosts now openly declare they will no longer accept Chinese guests. "We'll explain online why we refuse Chinese customers," one said, warning that the misconduct of just a handful can tarnish the image of an entire nation. And these cases are not isolated. Reports abound of Chinese tourists cutting down trees, harassing animals, or engaging in petty theft. In Belgrade, Serbia, a major tourist landmark was defaced when a Chinese internet celebrity spray-painted advertisements for his Douyin account across its walls. In China itself, similar incidents highlight a disregard for public decency. In Beijing's Niantan Park, elderly visitors used drinking fountains as makeshift foot baths. In Hebei's Qinhuangdao Wildlife Park, a mother exited her car to let her child relieve herself despite clear warnings about roaming predators, nearly triggering tragedy when a wolf approached. The consequences extend far beyond embarrassment. They not only endanger lives but also damage China's international standing, at a time when the country is desperate to project cultural influence abroad. Japan, where Chinese tourists account for a large share of arrivals and contribute billions to the economy, has grown increasingly vocal in its frustration. Viral videos capture scenes of elderly women shaking cherry blossom trees to create staged photo moments, tourists chasing deer in Nara, vandalizing hotel property, and blocking priority train seating with luggage. Each clip ignites heated debate online, both inside China and internationally. Yet, Chinese state media rarely confronts the issue directly. Instead, such incidents are often dismissed as isolated cases or framed as political discrimination against Chinese citizens. By refusing to acknowledge the root causes of this misconduct, officials only deepen the problem. So who bears responsibility? Scholars argue the problem is cultural as much as behavioral. For centuries, China embodied refinement and etiquette. During the Tang Dynasty, its capital, Chang'an, was a cosmopolitan hub that drew students from Japan, the Middle East, and Europe. Nations like Korea and Japan still preserve elements of etiquette inherited from ancient Chinese civilization. But much of this cultural foundation was dismantled during the Chinese Communist Party's rule. The Cultural Revolution destroyed traditions of respect, benevolence, and reverence for the divine, replacing them with propaganda that emphasized class struggle, hostility, and materialism. Over time, values such as righteousness, propriety, and trustworthiness, pillars of Chinese civilization for millennia, were hollowed out. Shanghai scholar Zhu Dake has argued that this erosion of moral fabric explains why so many Chinese citizens today place personal gain above collective responsibility. The party's indoctrination trained generations to see life as conflict and others as rivals. What we now witness in the disgraceful actions of some Chinese tourists abroad, littering, vandalism, and shameless entitlement, is not just a travel problem but the visible symptom of a deeper cultural and societal collapse. Ultimately, the uncivilized behavior of a minority of Chinese travelers cast a long shadow over the majority who behave respectfully. But until China confronts the political and cultural roots of the problem, its citizens will continue to face suspicion and hostility abroad, and its once proud identity as the land of etiquette will remain a relic of the past. 5 major shifts in Chinese lifestyles to cope with economic pressure. Living under the authoritarian rule of the Communist Party, many Chinese yearn to escape to countries free from communist control to live a life of freedom. As China's economy continues to decline, the number of people contemplating emigration is growing, fueling an intensifying wave of migration. According to a recent report, in 2024, an estimated 15,000 Chinese individuals with assets exceeding $1 million left the country, setting a historical record. The preferred destinations for these wealthy immigrants are in order the United States, Canada, the European Union, Singapore, Japan, and Hong Kong. Meanwhile, China's middle class, grappling with the prolonged downturn in the real estate market, P2P lending collapses, and other challenges, faces shrinking assets, negative equity risks, and growing uncertainty about the future. These factors have dampened their willingness to consume and led to shifts in their lifestyle perspectives. Recently, an article circulating online from Life Hack Sharing highlighted that economic pressures are driving 5 major shifts in lifestyle perspectives as people begin to explore simpler and more practical ways of living. 1. Awakening of health consciousness, a new trend in wellness among the young. In the past, morning exercises in parks were largely the domain of the elderly, and regular health checkups were a hallmark of their disciplined lives. Now, a new wave of health consciousness is emerging among the younger generation. They are moving away from late nights, cutting back on takeout and sugary drinks, and actively participating in activities like running. Health is the most valuable asset for ordinary people. Rather than spending huge sums on medical bills later, it's better to start taking care of the body now. 2. Return to rational consumption, prioritizing utility and cost-effectiveness. In the past, people might have valued the prestige of brands and flashy appearances, equating brands with status and aesthetics with value, while money was a secondary consideration. They adhered to the principle of, buy the best if you're going to buy. Now, both young and middle-aged people are focusing more on the practicality and cost-effectiveness of products. Distinguishing between needs and wants has become a new consumer habit. For needs, they compare options to find the best value. For wants, which are optional, they'd rather save the money to improve their diet or spend it where it truly matters. 3. Surge in enthusiasm for skill development, investing in oneself, forging new paths. More and more people are using their spare time to learn new skills and knowledge. Online courses, libraries, and free lectures have become their go-to sources for learning. Investing in oneself is always the wisest choice. 4. Marked increase in saving awareness, preparing for the future, living with peace of mind. The old saying, "with grain in hand, the heart is at ease," is now a guiding principle for many. Regardless of income level, people are consciously saving money to prepare for unexpected needs. Planned savings not only help handle emergencies, but also lay the groundwork for future development. 5. Comprehensive improvement in hands-on skills, self-sufficiency, and endless joy. Many people are starting to tackle problems themselves. More individuals are cooking at home, which is not only healthier and more hygienic, but also saves money. Fixing small appliances isn't highly technical. It just requires patience. Issues like leaks, air conditioners not cooling, or washing machines making strange noises can be addressed with the help of countless online tutorials. Doing it yourself not only saves money, but also brings a sense of accomplishment. These changes reflect how economic pressures are reshaping people's perspectives on life. September 3rd, Parade of the CCP costs. Over 5 billion showcases new weapons, experts expose most are imitations. On September 3, 2025, the Chinese Communist Party held a military parade at Tiananmen Square in Beijing, showcasing several new types of equipment. Among the latest unveilings were the Dongfeng 61 intercontinental ballistic missile and the debut of 4 models from the Yingji Eagle Strike missile series. On the defensive side, the Hongqi 29 anti-missile system was highlighted, emphasizing high-altitude kinetic interception and anti-satellite capabilities, though no authoritative detailed parameters were provided. Military commentator Mark stated, "This parade demonstrates that the CCP has invested heavily in building a modernized military, possibly the only one besides the US capable of doing so. However, the CCP's hallmark is imitation. Whatever the US has, they replicate. US weapons are battle-tested, gradually improved, and developed over time. The CCP believes copying the US is the fastest route, as they have never fought a modern war and lack confidence in modern warfare." Additionally, a significant number of unmanned combat systems participated in the parade, organized into 3 formations for sea, land, and air under the banner of unmanned combat groups. The 4 Yingji series anti-ship missiles showcased were officially claimed to be hypersonic, with speeds exceeding Mach 5. The Yingji 19 is considered a new type of hypersonic anti-ship missile. Mark noted, "Aside from hypersonic missiles, which offer a relatively unique advantage, other missiles like the Yingji 18 and Yingji 18C are essentially imitations of Sweden's naval strike missile." The problem with having so many missiles is the logistical nightmare it creates, requiring massive investment. Missiles have a limited lifespan and need maintenance, life extension, and control system upgrades, all of which are costly and time-consuming. While the CCP displays so many missiles, it's mostly for show. In reality, the number that can actually be deployed and used is likely far fewer. Mark also pointed out that in the Air Force, newer additions included the KJ-600 early warning aircraft, capable of being launched from aircraft carriers, and the J-15T fighter jet. However, the KJ-600 is a direct imitation of the U.S. Navy's E-2 Hawkeye, from its appearance to its onboard systems. Its actual performance remains unknown, and it has only been tested on land, leaving uncertainty about its practical use on an aircraft carrier. U.S. President Donald Trump posted on social media, emphasizing that the U.S. helped China expel invaders in the past and urging China to express gratitude. U.S.-based commentator Tong Jingyuan said, in his post, Trump explicitly asked whether Xi Jinping would acknowledge the immense help the U.S. provided to China during the War of Resistance against Japan. Xi didn't mention it at all. Instead, he subtly threatened the U.S. in his speech, questioning whether there should be dialogue or confrontation. Trump's post was essentially a subtle accusation of ingratitude against Xi Jinping and the CCP regime. Trump also sarcastically warned, "Please remember to send my regards to Putin and Kim Jong-un, who are conspiring against the U.S." Although Trump mentioned Russia and North Korea conspiring against the U.S., it's clear that these two countries are currently aligned with the CCP, with China at the core of an anti-U.S. alliance. While Trump didn't use the term, he effectively conveyed the idea of an axis of evil, Xi Jinping's speech this time was only one-third the length of his 2015 speech, significantly shorter and noticeably more restrained in content. Additionally, Xi appeared to show signs of health issues. Tang Jingyuan observed, Xi Jinping's physical and mental condition was markedly different compared to the last parade. This time, Xi appeared extremely fatigued, clearly indicating health problems. When walking, he limped noticeably, and during the parade observation from the Tiananmen rostrum, the muscles on the left side of his neck were visibly spasming, a clear sign of stroke aftermath. This year's parade commander broke with tradition, with Lieutenant General Han Shengyan, commander of the Central Theater Command Air Force, taking the role instead of the usual commander from the military region or theater command based in the capital. Additionally, the absence of former CCP General Secretary Hu Jintao and former Premier Zhu Rongji drew significant attention. Thank you for watching Secret in China. If you value thoughtful, independent journalism, we invite you to subscribe, share your thoughts in the comments, and join the conversation. Until next time, stay informed and take care.